Hey Lorena, I saw that your first article was based off the Johnson Johnson's baby powder and how they're getting lawsuits for it. And I think it's a interesting article to pick because Johnson Johnson for a long time is a very major corporation and a long-standing corporation that has been used throughout the years, and plenty of parents have used like their products for their children, and people even use it for their vaccines, like the COVID vaccines and such. Even though now that if you're gonna pick the COVID vaccine, like it's recommended not to use the Johnson Johnson vaccine. Like this company used to be like a major like health company that people like turn to, and this past like 3 years since like COVID, it's really gone downhill. And you could see that, like I said before, with the vaccine. And I think it's pretty interesting to see that happen. Like companies like Pfizer and Moderna was not here before. Like it was just Johnson Johnson. Like people just looked to Johnson Johnson. They would give out the vaccines and such. So I think it's really interesting to see like a huge downfall in this company and how many lawsuits are coming out of it, and like how the COVID vaccine for them like also like had like a lot of issues, like a lot of heart palpitation issues and bad for like, pregnant women and such. While like the Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines didn't, and like they were like obviously superior. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting article to bring up on how like their products are slowly going downhill. And your next article, you talked about how the Olympic players in Russia and Ukraine. It's on the debate again whether the Russian Olympic players can come back and play for in the Olympics, and I think it's a very sad decision to like not allow the players to play in the Olympics. But at the same time, like, excuse me, if the nations don't agree with what their nation is doing, like this is a way to kind of like punish the nation for doing what they're doing. Like we have done this before with different like nations, so I don't think it's absurd for it to happen, but I just think it's unfair to players that have nothing to do with what their country did, and that they trained so hard for their whole life to get to that position, and just for them to be at their prime or at their peak not be able to play. So that's kind of sad to think about. And then your last article, you talk about credit card lower rate fees and banks and how they're trying to push for lower rate fees, and how rate fees in America has been a huge issue, and how credit cards in general are a huge issue. And I think it is important to know and realize that, like that the banks and credit card system has put down a lot of Americans. It has put people in poverty. It has had a control over people. So when you think about that, I think it is important that our politicians try to do something to fix it, and that these banks do try their best to get around loopholes and like try their best to fight legally. Like, oh no, like even though people are trying to pay for it back. So I do think it's important to bring that up. Good job.